Okay, this is Big Painted Cave, which has the same question I always ask. How come those deep pit like that one there? And then the rubble in the center rises out of the pit, and then it'll be dropped down into that cave that we'll go into. This apparently was very much like the symbol bridge that we were at, and it has symbols in here. And then the author begins to imagine that this might have been a waypoint for Native American, or for early ancestors of Native Americans, as they put it, who would have traveled here from other areas in search of whatever it was they sought in the lava fields. One wonders, because you don't see any obsidian. Water was difficult to find, although it might have been in these caves, and they could have known that. Okay, we're now approaching the entrance to the cave. You can see that if this were part of the lava, either the tube goes down there, or there were just pockets of tubes, I suppose. But that's another question. Were there just pockets of tubes? And if so, how did that form? You can see here the critters that live here and urinate, defecate, and eat their food on that rock. Probably birds live up there. That's the calcium from their bird droppings, which have turned into bird flow. And you wonder if there are mice middens in here that, if found, can be used to analyze those periods. We're about to cross the threshold of light here, or at least of sunlight direct. Now we're into the cave, and you can actually feel the coolness once you're in the shadow. Not just a lower temperature, but an actual sense of cool. Okay, now that goes down deeper, so there's the answer. There's a tube down through there. I wonder if that was... It looks man-made the way it's hollowed out. Was it excavation, perhaps? I don't see much in the way of pictographs, unless that's one there. And perhaps there. And there. And there. There are some drawings on the rocks, but you don't know whether they're modern. Made by modern fools, attempting to compete with the majesty of history, or whether these are ancient ones. It may be that these were done with charcoal, and that this is all that remains. It could also mean that many of the drawings were on some of the rocks that were up there, like the red area as opposed to that whitish area. Maybe that's all fallen in. And the pictographs are on the back of these rocks somewhere, like that one right there. It's interesting to wonder also if these pictographs is the main or only expression that we have of their culture, or I mean of their what messages to history they were trying to leave. That history meaning not for many years in the future. An incredibly small, unknowable, apparently, discrete history, written history. What will future generations, 1,000 years from now, if life still exists, how will they look at what ours is? Our history, which seems so voluminous, understatement. Will theirs be so voluminous that ours will still look antique and unique? How interesting that surface almost looks serpentine. Again, you can see thin layers of rock have dropped off. It always makes me nervous to go in these lava caves because it is so absolutely obvious that rocks fall off the ceiling. Unlike the limestone caves where, well, it probably does happen, and I've seen examples of it. It's not as frequently seen inside the caverns. At least that's my perception. What did ancient man think as he stood pretty much where I am and just gazed around at this rock that he was entering? Surely it was the work of giants, even in his mind, that built this stuff. He could have had no idea the dynamics of lava tubes. I'm now on the cave loop, which starts and ends at the visitor center, and specifically at Golden Dome. This sign points out that this cave is an important roost site for the Townsend's big-eared bat, a sensitive species which cannot survive human interference. The caves on this loop apparently and specifically have narrow passageways. This is the first of one. Okay, what's interesting is I'm going to follow this path down here. These tubes go for quite a distance, and it's continuing downward. I had no intention of following this puppy everywhere, but it goes quite a ways. There's water dripping down. It just keeps on going and going. It's pretty trippy. Well, here we're going into a larger chamber, or at least where it's broken down a bit. You have to be very careful because you can twist a foot easily on this stuff. I'm not going to continue to follow it, but you can get an idea. This is a very wide chamber here. So I've just covered the flashlight. You can see there's absolutely no light from that end, which is where we came from. So we'll continue on back up. Okay, now we're approaching the entrance again, obviously. But presumably the cave goes for quite a distance. I don't have any incentive to follow it to the end. But we will go a little bit this way again, just to see where this goes. It's hard to imagine that Native Americans and others did not find these things captivating enough to figure out how to get in here. You can see where this thing went. Just on and on and on. The surface is interesting. It looks like, particularly in this light, as though it were cement that had just been plopped down here by a truck, let's say, and never bothered to be spread out or worked. This is the stairway up. The Indian would have had to have had a means of climbing down here. Probably the strong ones could bring a rope and come down. Maybe they developed rope ladders, I don't know.